So hi there, guys. This is July 25th. This is our POC orientation on education and competition, which you saw a great video with Alfie Kahn, or Kahn, however you pronounce it. Sorry, but it was new to all of us, if I'm not mistaken. Has anyone seen this before?
No, it was new.
Cool. Yeah, Sasha found it, and it's really great. We'll be posting that below, obviously, and let's just jump right in. I don't know, unless you want to take the time to go through the introductions and all that. Personally, I'd see it as kind of, I don't know, a little unnecessary. Maybe takes up time. It's I don't know. That's the way I see it. If anyone would like to forego that, or is there anyone who wants to do that?
I'm good to skip it.
Cool. Let's jump right in then. So. Maru, that was you first. Does your microphone work? I don't think. Have you said anything yet, or just your text?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. Okay, my observation from listening and watching was cooperation and collaboration trumps competition just about in every arena, especially education with children. But I had a caveat that was I think that competition is important when it comes to things like martial arts and chess. Martial arts, say for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so not when you're hurting your opponent, but you need to have that competitive edge, or else you don't have as much fun, I guess, if it's just going over a dance routine. And with chess, if the person you're facing isn't willing to try and beat you, then the game also loses a lot of its cutting-edge fun. Yeah, but everything else, I totally agreed. I thought that collaboration always creates better products, a better environment, more fun, and it creates happiness and stuff like that. What do you guys think?
It's interesting on martial arts. I used to love it, but in a sense, I feel like what he's saying is it's kind of like what he was saying. You know, the world, the school system structure, how it is now. It conditions kids to say, okay, the world. This is how the world's going to treat you, so we're going to treat you like this now, and prepare you for that in a sense. So martial arts, even if you're doing it, you know, not to teach people to attack other people, if you're doing it to defend against being attacked, it's kind of doing the same thing, I think. And instead of teaching kids, you know, communication and ways to bridge differences and solve problems in that way, it's still kind of operating within the structure of, you know, perpetuating a degree of violence in a sense.
Like, I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but like I guess it comes down to context. And like, say for instance, I'm climbing a tree and I fall, or I'm riding a skateboard down a steep hill and I come off, I spill off. My martial arts training totally makes me so I don't injure myself. As somebody else who hasn't done that, they're going to have a serious accident and probably be impaired for a long time. So if the framing of martial arts isn't to create violence and perpetuate violence, but rather avoid it, but like if it was a collaborative, resource-based economy, the whole society would not have violence as it wouldn't be on the news, it wouldn't be something that we're involved in. But in our society, it is. But like, martial arts teaches us to avoid violence. Like, if we notice that there's a bunch of guys over this way that might try and start a fight with us, we'll walk that way. So, yeah.
It's true, but it's, again, if it's teaching someone within the context of my success is dependent on your loss, then isn't that kind of the same structure we were just talking about?
Kind of, but I'd look, like, if I go into a dojo and I'm learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I get grappled up and choked out, like, I can tap the ground, or I can tap the other martial arts practitioner, and they're going to instantly let go of me. And I've just learned a brilliant lesson without getting injured. So their winning is not my losing. Their winning is my learning.
That's true. If you know, but again, if you project that forward, you know, what are the results and consequences that happen after that? What were the results and causes that led to this happening? It's within that framework of, I suppose, more destructive education or education based on kind of destructive principles. It's working against someone as opposed to with someone. Again, it's kind of at the heart of what we're talking about. So yeah, in a sense, again, I respect and enjoy watching martial arts even, but only because I've been conditioned to do so in the culture that I live in. And I don't like it in a lot of ways anymore. And how they say prevention is the best medicine, kind of like dealing with violence with violence is kind of like the pharmaceutical industry treating problems with drugs, which cause other problems and have other side effects outside of that. You really want to prevent any need for teaching martial arts in the long run. I mean, really what you want is just people to get along and not need to have to defend against or fight against each other.
I completely agree. I just wanted to tell you that I used to do MMA, mixed martial arts. It's ironic because I enjoyed it so much. Because it was the physical activity, the hitting the punch bag and whatnot. But like I was fully aware that it's still a competition. Somebody is still getting hurt, regardless of if you're not doing it with whatever intentions you have. So after that, I just started thinking like more. Fine, I'll just do it to train, to stay fit. And other than that, that's it. I'll be honest and say that I do I do enjoy MMA fights and WWE. But that's as you were saying, Michael, because I'm conditioned to it. But in the end, all the sports are the same, regardless of if somebody gets hurt or if somebody crosses a finish line first than the rest of the people, or if somebody puts a ball inside a net. They're all the same competitive things, which is like beating the other team because fuck you, because we're better. So yeah, that's it. That's my 2 cents.
I also want to respond to Mario a little bit. I guess in martial arts and chess and just games where you have to have an opponent, the structure of competition has the one benefit of allowing you to play against opponents that you normally wouldn't. Like, it's a way to play with other people, but it still has the same, like, it makes us it makes our confidence and self-esteem contingent on our latest victory, like he was saying. So, but what's good about martial arts in particular is that it makes you think about competition in general. Like, usually, if you're doing jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or something, your master or whatever will discuss like when not to use violence, when to use violence, and you actually have a discussion and think about competition in general. Unlike in like soccer or something, where competition is you're always trying to win. You're always doing this to win. So in that way, martial arts are a little bit different from most competitive things.
It reminds me of the old adage, if you have a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. If you're trained to respond to violent situations with violence, I mean, in a sense, it's less violent. It's a more neutral, even if it's a more neutralizing kind of violence, it's still violence to a degree, which, again, can perpetuate other violence and other ill will from someone. Even if you win the confrontation, again, that can have negative consequences for you. Say it hurts the other person's feelings, say they want revenge. It's a terrible cycle that kind of keeps going.
Yeah, because for example, with Taekwondo, I had a friend who practiced it. She was like black belt or whatever. But I do remember that they are taught, like avoid violence resolution as a way to do it as much as you can for as long as you can. Avoid it for the longest time that you can, unless you're being attacked. They're even trained not to even attack back, but just to defend themselves. And as you were saying, Michael, neutralize the opponent. which I think, I mean, it's the least violent way of ending, that problem. If the other person, of course, is not willing to even discuss the ideas of why the conflict is happening.
Yeah, like this guy was saying in these videos, we're conditioned to look at people as opponents and enemies and obstacles to our own personal success and happiness, and it's counterproductive not just for us but for them as well, for society at large. I mean, there are billions of us. If we're all conditioned to just seek our own personal, individual success at the cost of everyone and everything else, then it's not a very successful civilization, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, go.
Sorry. I think that also the video, what actually it brought up a lot is that competition, because once you focus on competition, on the goal to win, it actually limits your options. It's kind of like puts you in a position, okay, I need to win, puts you a lot of pressure, and then you're not able to think like creatively. And actually, I have experienced that on I don't know if you know these kind of startup weekends where you create a company in 54 hours. So basically, it's a startup weekend. You organize teams, and then everybody is supposed to think creatively and basically build a company from scratch, an idea that is innovative. So we were split in teams, and actually, like the goal of my team, like we were all there. It was more like to win than to think about how we're gonna make this like afterwards, how we're gonna continue, how we're gonna make this a real company afterwards. So it was really, and that's why I think we were not creative. We won an award, but we didn't continue with the project afterwards. And actually, we were not even like agreeing with each other. I think how to continue, because some had like more squared view of just to win, and some had like more like, okay, let's see what we can explore. So it was really limiting our options somehow. I think the idea of winning, and we won, but there was nothing afterwards. So
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it relates as well with what you just said. If you stop thinking that everybody else is competing with you, or your rival, or somebody that might not be willing to share the best interest with you, and instead you look at them like they're on your same level, and you should both try to work together to make an even better outcome. I think that changes the whole picture. I think that gives you like a bigger panorama of how things are, and you actually have like even better ways of getting to a better solution.
and then you also focus on how the other people want to see that. So you really focus on what the people will expect from you to win, basically, not what's the best, not thinking out of the box, or you know.
Yeah, I'm curious to get to Gabrielle's question. Is Gabriel or Gabrielle? Which one do you prefer?
Gabriel, I guess. It
Sorry
depends
about
on
that.
where you're from.
Cool. Well, I was curious to see where you got your next question from, or comment.
Oh, towards the beginning he was talking about that standardized testing, you only need it when you're trying to find out who's the winner.
That's short for standardized testing. It's abbreviated STD testing. I was like, I don't remember him talking about that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing abbreviated in all these things. I probably shouldn't do that.
No, it made for a funny little misinterpretation.
But yeah, that's all I was saying there. Yeah, they're trying to find out who's the winner, so they're not trying to find out who's excellent or how well things are working. It's just...
And it doesn't even get to know who's more intelligent. It just means who got a higher number of right answers, but the questions themselves can be you know, not even be looking for the right answer to see if the person has the ability to make analysis, to think, or whatever. You know, it might just be like, what is 1 + 1? 2. Okay, you got it right. You know, but that's something that you know, like you do need to think about what the answer is, but you just do it by memory. But you know, if they give you like, let's say that one train, you know, like all those physics problems and whatever, you know, they're more complex and you actually have to analyze variables and stuff, you know, use the brain.
Yeah, I think it should be noted, though. I feel like it's, I don't know, I don't think we should be against testing in general, because obviously it serves some useful purpose in terms of determining level of knowledge for something, you know, on a task or assignment, you know, you know, but again, it's in terms of our own, you know, personal. In this world, it's for a job, basically. It's you know, to determine who's good enough for a job, which is fine. But you know, again, the way we're projecting and heading is that machines are doing more and more jobs, so it's not necessary for people to know everything or, you know, different things.
Well, yeah,
Just to
knowing.
add, sorry, go ahead first.
No. You go. Take it.
Okay. Just to add on that, I think that tests, okay, not necessarily it should be like the ones that we use today. It can be made in many different ways. It just serves for you to learn more. Actually, that's what it serves for me, because I was just recently attending some courses online, and I was using it just to test my knowledge, but not to test it really, to learn more. Because then I realized, oh, wait, I want to learn about this. I don't really get this. Because first you think you get something, but then only once you start discussing it and, you know, answering some stuff, you realize you don't really get everything in the beginning. So I think it's good for just to get more knowledge and get more acquaintance with the subject. And I think it's brilliant what he said about working in a team, working with people, because then you get so many different aspects, and then people get like aligned on something, or they realize something even bigger.
Yeah, I mean, testing individually, like the guy said in the video, you know, we operate better as a whole, or what was it, like any group, in a group dynamic, the whole is more knowledgeable than any singular part of it. So, again, testing one person individually probably, or may not be as effective as testing, you know, the whole group, say.
Yeah, one
I
thing
think.
that I find, oops,
Go,
goes
Deborah.
oh, thanks. Yeah, one thing that I have observed that people find very hard is to work in groups. I started working as a teacher when I was around 15 years old, so it's been, what, 20 years, mostly working with kids. And when I am working with kids and we have a collective tasks, they don't have any problem working together. The idea of competition is not fully installed in their mind yet. Of course, there is always one that wants to win this or that, or the other one who doesn't want to lose. But that's a minor issue when I'm dealing with kids. On the other hand, when I am performing or coordinating workshops in companies, and that's what I do for a living, people tend to find it extremely hard because they are always thinking, I am taking notes to add this information to the report, and that somehow it goes to HR. And then later they talk to me, are you going to give this information to the boss or things like that? It's very hard for them to understand the idea that they are there to learn and not to compete in the workshops. Also, one thing that I find interesting among adults is that I don't usually apply any tests to the groups, only the collective tasks. And they find it very hard not to have a test. Sometimes they ask me to give them a test. That's it.
Yeah, that's interesting because, like, when you're running those workshops and you've got an environment where they're collaborating, as they get more used to it, they put their best secrets forward. because they're not in competition who's got the best idea or who's going to win. So you're more likely to put the best knowledge you have forward to collaborate with the team. But I was going to mention with children, I've been learning about learning, and I've come across two theories of learning. One where a child will go get a test result, and they'll either be mediocre, good, or excellent at a subject, say mathematics, and they've got an identity. And if they've got an identity that result is their identity with mathematics, that can stay with them for a long time. For some people, for life. There's another theory of learning where the person will get a mediocre or a good or excellent result, and it's not in concrete. It's just an indication of where they're at now, their concentration and focus on the subject where they are participating in now. But it can, with hard work, they can improve their results.
Cool. Nice. You want to move on to the next question? Or is that Sergio? I think he said he stepped away for a phone call.
I guess the difference between those two theories of learning is a flexible versus a static theory of intelligence. Like flexible in that, oh, this is just me right now, I can improve, or oh, this is how I'm always going to be. I'm always going to be mediocre at math. So I think we need to teach kids that intelligence is flexible, so that they always take the approach where they can improve.
Right, and also like instead of just route learning and memorization as looked as upon like the most important intelligence when learning a subject, like someone said before, like questioning, like if it's 1 + 1, like I've been taught to teach, I'm a parent, and I've been taught to teach my daughter to ask a further question like what base are you referring to, because in mathematics a different base will come out with a different answer. So by asking a further question, you're showing a higher intelligence in that subject, per se.
I'm sure her teachers think she's a little troll.
Cool. Well, Sergio stepped out, so I guess and he had the next couple questions. So I think move down. Actually, he had most of the rest of the questions, comments. I had one that was just kind of a quick little thing about an observation. I guess it's probably the reason why Jock is so smart, because he didn't have this setting. He learned outside of the traditional school setting, this competitive, restrictive format, and was allowed to progress at his own pace, which is why he's, as far as I can tell, so much further ahead of everyone else. But it's interesting, you know, according to what we were just seeing, he would have been even smarter and faster if he would have had a group to operate within and with. It was at the same level instead of just him on his own. Does that make sense, anyone?
Yeah, he would have been bouncing his ideas off other people just as passionate about similar subjects, and like Jock can only go so far in any subject because we've all only got one brain and so much time. So if you've got a group of people branching out in all different directions, there's so much more work and so much more collaboration, so much more quantity of data that you can like share with each other, and then you can like get such a quality synopsis of that data from each other, and so your understanding of something can like just be 300-fold compared to your like 100% worth of knowledge. I think like self-directed learning and being passionate about a subject is a big propellant to your really understanding it and becoming really proficient and expert at that subject.
Yeah, I mean, it's self-directed learning, I think, is becoming the paradigm of, you know, most educators worth anything, as far as I can tell, are espousing that right now. But really, that's kind of an adaptation within this divided, you know, culture that we live in, where it's necessary to kind of continue your own education. But I mean, it's the best case. But really, what this is suggesting is that it's really, there's no best. But again, what might be a better case would be, a more group dynamic, not just individual focus, but again, a group of people working together, collaborating, researching, working together, bouncing ideas off each other, which is what we're doing right now, by the way. But yeah, we're kind of forced to do it on our own terms because we're so isolated and divided in these little socioeconomic groups and all that. These different identities and all that.
I think another technique that I like to use is like instead of how I was talking before about identifying yourself with a set level of competency within any subject, there's this theory that says that if you... Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Happens. We're talking about a lot of big stuff. It looks like, Clementina, it looks like you added something there at the bottom. Did you want to mention that since Sergio's still away?
Okay, I was on mute. Yeah. So I just started thinking, well, I was listening to this video that, in order to bring this idea up to people of the Venus Project and this different system, much different system than the people that have grown up with these kind of values that encourage competition, but also a lot of other things that accept war and these kind of things. In my opinion, the people that are still in beginning of school, they are the ones who are more keen to accept this idea and basically make a change because they come with no values, no limitations in their mind, and for them it would be easier maybe to accept this kind of an idea. And I think that education would be the primary step to get through the Venus Project idea, learning, so that people are more open in future for these kind of things. It doesn't necessarily need to be classified as the Venus Project, of course, but something in these kind of frames that kids are not taught as they are today.
It's funny you should mention that. I've just been watching, I studied John Taylor Gatto. He was the New York Best Time Teacher of the Year, and he left the system saying, I will not hurt children no more. And he said that the rich, or the people in power, look upon the children as a dangerous class. They're the ones who will take on new ideas and move forward, and they've got a lot of tenacity. They might not have all the world wisdom we have as adults, but they're so keen to just innovate and create new ideas and things, that they're actually looked upon as a dangerous class because they're able to move forward with things way quicker than a lot of adults. And the idea before that I've had forgotten, but it has come back to me, is that when somebody might have some deficiency in learning, say again mathematics, and they might be at the bottom of their class, but with proper tutoring outside of that class, they can actually, in 2 or 3 years, they can be doing 3 times better than the top person in their class 3 years ago. So intelligence isn't something that can't be grown, even if you're at the bottom of the heap of that intelligence. You can always become more intelligent.
Yeah. Maybe just to add something on that, I think you mentioned about the kids, right? The kids that they act sometimes more intelligently. Was that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because I've had actually similar kind of information, because sometimes you get a really simple task to kids and adults, let's say, and the adults will immediately think, oh, this is something very complicated because we were put here to solve it. And the kids would be like, okay, let's see how to solve it. They would immediately go to the problem, and the adults would start thinking and think it's too difficult, and because of all these frames and beliefs that they have within.
Totally.
All right, so I'm next.
Oh, yeah. We're ready to discuss your bullet points.
All right, hold on. the first one, competition as a lie, to the only thing that motivates us, and is the right way to do it. Well, yeah, it's said a lot in our society that if competition like does not happen, the whole system pretty much will collapse. This is not true. There's lots of examples, not just in education, but if you even look at nature, there's commensalism or mutualism, processes that evolve two different species working together to come to a better outcome. For example, like the hippos and these birds that lie on them. The birds like eat up the hippos like bacteria and whatnot, so they get fed, and the hippos, the bacteria is no longer on like their skin or whatever, so they have like better health. So it's like one of the mutualism examples. On our society, I think we would be a good example of the thousands of examples that there are. The first one that came to my mind, I think, is us. I think, like right now, we're not competing to see who is right. We're just analyzing things. We're trying to get to the same outcome, which is like educating ourselves as best as we can with each other's analysis and discussions. So that was as for the competition being the only way that motivates us. That's not true. It's just a lie that's been told 1,000 times, so it became true. The next one is mine as well, but let's see if somebody has anything to say about it.
Well, I was just going to say, with your competition as a lie thing, I see what you're saying, and I think it's interesting because, yeah, in a sense, we are all connected, whether or not we can see it or understand it. It's true, in a sense. So when we're forced to compete against each other instead of cooperate, we're kind of forced to be behaving in a way that is counterproductive to ourselves and society in general, and it's unfortunate. Learning about that is a way to change it, it seems. Like when you learn that that's the case, like, it seems like you want to change it, right? That's what we're here for, right?
I would say that's the best example of what conditioning is. You're forcing a behavior upon the people because you're claiming something and you're forcing people to do it, and that is changing how they normally behave on their environment. Because right now people are so used to saying, oh well, if there's no competitivity, we wouldn't do anything, or that's my biggest fear of a like non-resource-based economy or whatever, communism or whatever. That's not true. That's just that we've been so conditioned. It's been so hardwired into like our brains that's true that we all just accept it. And it's something else that the guy from the video. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. Yeah, him. That was something else that he was saying. Like, crap, I forgot where I was gonna go with my idea. Lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Well, you mentioned briefly, so really this thing is... Sorry, what was that? Was that you, Gabriel?
My audio just like went super fast forward and caught up. Yeah, I think I'm having connection issues. But go ahead.
Once again.
No, sorry. Well, anyway, what I noticed, one thing he mentioned briefly, because this seemed to be more about competition than education, kind of more about the problem rather than the solutions. But, well, education, in a sense, can be, indoctrination in terms of if you're just educating someone, rote memorization and all this, stuff we've been talking about, standardized testing and all this, educating them towards a specific direction, goal, job, whatever you want to think of it about. Whereas education, again, what we've kind of been hinting at and discussing, touching on briefly, is that it's best when self-directed, because you come from your own particular background and you know what's most relevant to you in your environment and what you need. So in a sense, we are best at determining what is best for us, in a sense. But we can't do that. We can only do that within the information that we have available, and the access to resources and other people and all that. And that's where it's severely limited. But anyway, education, the internet is helping overcome that obstacle and deficit. But there's information everywhere now, and obviously there are people manipulating that, and it's again a strategy to kind of counter that. But really, I see it as growing like this, kind of new Renaissance age, if you want to call it that, brought about by technology, communication, and transportation, all this other stuff, which is kind of overcoming all these primitive barriers and obstacles. Does anyone else see that, or does that make sense?
I can comment on it, but if somebody else could do it, that'd be better.
Cool. Anyway, well, continue then with your points.
All right. No, well, I was just going to tell you that last semester I was in a class, communication. Yeah, I guess it's just communication class. It's design oriented, of course. And I remember the teacher. She was the one that I did the screening on her class of Paradise or Oblivion, and I find it really hard to believe that she thought that this was utopian. But that's for another day. She was telling us that, hey, look, I read this book. I'm going to try to explain it to you as best as I can, but I'm going to give you my conclusion, my understanding. So if you believe that everything I say is how it is, you're not really educating yourself. You're just repeating what I'm telling you. Not because I'm telling you to repeat it, but if you read your own book, you're going to have a different understanding that I did. Or you might even agree or disagree with whatever the book said or the lecture or whatever. So that's the important thing. Right now, don't just read a summary that somebody wrote, because sure, it's going to have the most general information, but when it comes to analyzing, you're just gonna be stuck with somebody else's train of thoughts, So that's why you gotta do things your own way, not that the hard way, but for educating, you cannot believe anything that somebody else tells you. Like, you gotta read it by yourself and get your own conclusions. That's when you really learn.
I've got a point to add to that, Sergio. Like that guy John Taylor Gatto, that New York Best Time Teacher of the Year again. When he was a child, he went to a Jewish school or some Jewish school or something, and the Jew rabbi comes in and he's like saying some stuff like, why did this particular war start, and blah blah blah. That's why it started, and then repeat why it started. And John Taylor Gatto started saying the blah blah blah, repeating why it started, and he goes, "You fool! You believed me. How could you be so ignorant and just believe what I told you? You're just repeating what I said. That's got nothing to do with the war." And then he goes, "The real reason why the war started is because blah blah blah." And then he goes, "Why did the war start?" And then John Taylor Gatto says he copied him again, and he fell into the same trap. He goes, "You fool! You fell for the same trick again. Like, you're just repeating what I told you the second time. Like, you have to go and read the original documents and come to your own conclusion." And so yeah, definitely don't take any source of anybody's word. Like, if you're in a team that you're all collaborating, like Jock Fresco, how we were talking before, if he had a team, or Leonardo da Vinci's got a team of experts around him, hopefully they're not feeding you this BS this way, or this misinformation by accident. But because if you're in a team, you wouldn't want to go and do all the research yourself on other people's and your team's work. But again, like, just because a teacher's at the front, or a professor, or a CEO, or boss, or they haven't got the monopoly on knowledge. Well, they might, but it's up to you to go in and find the facts for yourself and do the research yourself to make up your own conclusion.
Yeah, that's well said, because really, obviously you could tell, trying to educate other people. I mean, you can try and tell someone the truth, if you want to call it that, but as we all know, the truth is there is no truth. So really, you're just telling them the truth from a very limited perspective, a very limited frame of reference. So really, yeah, they're not going to be able to get a complete picture from that. They're going to get a much better one if they can study
That's
more.
the truth according to you. You know, that's what you say, what you think, but that's not the complete truth. Sorry
Yeah.
that I completely word blocked you, I guess. Keep on going, Michael, sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, you get it, and it kind of what Maru was just mentioning. I like that. When the guy was saying one thing and then saying, "Aha, that's just what I was just giving you," and saying it again, because it's true from many different perspectives. You could say, well, the reason for war is, you could say the reason from an economic perspective, or from an evolutionary perspective, or from the perspective of the elite who control the system, or the system itself, or you could say all these many different truths, and they can all be right, but and so people can't agree with them on many different levels. It's interesting.
Agreed.
I think that's actually. Sorry, Sergio, to interrupt you.
Not at all. I talk too much. Sorry. Go.
That's good. I think that one issue that we have as like people with 24 hours in a day is time. So we cannot always exactly have the time to look for the information, reading the book, and so on and so on. Maybe for something if it's like very relevant for us, but otherwise, I think that I've learned a lot from other people as well, and talking with other people. And of course, I formed my own views from what they said. Not always I got it as they told me, but not necessarily always went into the book because I didn't have the time, or I just preferred not to read and do something else. So it really depends on the time. We're living in that period where we don't really have that much time to read and make all the proper research. Plus, there is so much information and data, so we're struggling with that as well. And everything from media to books, it can also be a version of a story. Basically, what's the correct version at the end?
Yeah, and that transitions nicely into Deborah's question, which was what's the role of textbooks? In which case, again, from my perspective, the way I see it, and I know obviously other people have different ones, is that I see books as rather obsolete media for sharing information or communication or whatever you want to call it. They can still have use, obviously, but a lot of them are just kind of useless, arbitrary words. A lot, what we call sunny day in May bullshit. There's very little, relevant, non-trivial information given, non-subjective. It's more subjective than objective because people are only given a very limited set of information, or this competitive-based system that we live in that forced competition forces this over-specialization in a way. Comes from scarcity and all this different stuff. Anyway, it's this really branching, tangential effect. But yeah.
Oh, well, I think you have a really good point there. Not only that books are obsolete medium, but that we're sort of using obsolete methods in general. I think that we really need to focus on using new methodologies, modern methodologies.
Yeah, it seems video is the new preferred medium. And yeah, like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words. The more information you can get across more efficiently is more effective.
Not to say that books are obsolete, but maybe the way in which they're written are obsolete, or that's my point of view. Because, for example, a scientific textbook, they're just saying, hey, this was the statement that this relates with the scientific method hangout that we did last Saturday, if I'm not wrong. If you're talking about facts, hey, we had this question, we did this experiment, these were like our standards of making as less bias as possible. This was like our closed environment, and these are the facts and the conclusions that we got based on those experiments. So water is wet, so then you know that water is wet, but you're not reading somebody saying that, oh, it's because I know that water is wet because I know it, or I think that water is wet, or like there's a big difference in whether it's something more scientific rather than just like the history books. We all agree on the history because we all read the same textbooks. History is written by the winners, not by the losers. Losers, not as in losers, but like the people who lost the war. So we'll never know what actually happened on both sides. Like we'll never get the full story. So that's when as Michael and Will were saying, that's when books become obsolete. Because books are the best way to keep knowledge stored or where for thousands of years. Now it's electromagnetic, like USBs or the hard drives or whatever. But the problem with those books were, the ones that were written biased subjectively by somebody who was trying to, prove a point. France is amazing, said the French guy, But is France really amazing? That's a real question.
I had this feeling about Cuba. Cuba is a very controversial topic. I don't want to get into that, but my education is in social sciences. Political sciences in international relations, and I spent years studying about Cuba. I read good points about Cuba, bad points about Cuba, and then I was kind of tired of being asked, have you ever been to Cuba? And then one day I went, and the feeling that I had after 2 weeks doing research there on my own was that I had been fooled for years, because none of the books I read on Cuba had anything to do with what I saw there.
Yeah, books are, they're a way of trying, transmitting some version of truth, but a very limited form of it, if you want to call it truth or information, whatever. Much more.
I think it's transmitting a view of someone who wrote the book, and you have tons of views and tons of experiences depending on the people that you're surrounded with and the environment, the periods. So it's always like a view of one or a few people that wrote the book, and it's always going to be different.
Yeah, and
probably we're all even experiencing this call differently, and even we'll have different conclusions at the end of the call, in a way. So it's really difficult to have something that will be true for everyone, I think.
Yeah, and it's not it's any medium or any whatever source of information that's produced for a given time is from a certain perspective and limited set of information and experience. So it's good in a sense that it's trying to spread information in a sense, but you have to look at its sources and where it its environment or their environments, whatever the inspirations or the incentives behind that, the creative factor causes. So the more
yet again, I don't think it's always like the medium, like even like a book. There's some really well written and researched and collaborated books on our planet that we have available, and they've got excellent information in them. But I think it's us readers, or them readers, or just readers. They same as that example with the Jewish teacher in John Taylor Gatto. Like, I'll read a book. I might read about Darwinism and then start looking at Richard Dawkins and become a bright and atheist, and then I might tell people about my views about how I because they go, are you Christian? Are you German? Are you Jewish? And then I might tell them what I am, what I believe, and then they'll argue it, and then I'll paraphrase what I read from the book or what I seen on the video. So then again, I haven't done my own research. I've got one or two or three people's perspective, and that's the truth. That's reality. So suddenly, like, and when it's like something like atheism, I can back it up with Darwinism, I can back it up with science, and I'm right. But that's not necessarily so. I'm right from the context, from the information I've got available up to now. There could be some more information that somebody else who's more enlightened than me that teaches me some other views that I was totally unaware of, and now I can change my opinion and my positioning of where I stand on that subject.
God, I've been deprived of talking to smart people. When I was on vacation, I missed talking to you guys and hearing, more insightful comments. What this person's wearing and who's doing who and whatever all this other shit. But nice. I was curious, being with such smart people with good information. I was curious. Did you guys have other answers for his kind of question that he posed in terms of what causes that? Where the competition comes from, or what was his exact question? It was why do you think the study turned out the way it did with competition, killing creativity? That one.
Yeah, his question was why did a reward reduce the level of success or the quality of the work?
Crap, I was gonna say something, but food is here. Hold on.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any more insight or ideas on why that is? Explanations, examples?
RSA has a sweet video on that by Dan Pink.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I could put a link to it.
I just have one more tip because I think that we are responsible to interpret certain things and not to take everything as granted that we read. So people need to be responsible and not only say, oh, that would make me believe that, or that article must be right because it's written. It's our responsibility to be constructive, creative, and whatever to have our own views.
Was that a joke that you added to the bottom there? What about sales at the bottom?
No, it's not. Actually, I'm wondering because I'm in sales, so when you're in sales, you always like quotes for an RFQ, request for quotation, and you have multiple companies quoting for that, right? So you need to be the winner in a way to get the business. Otherwise, you don't achieve your goals and targets. So what's your opinion on that? I really would like to hear that.
No, do you know why that is? It goes hand in hand with this scarcity-based model that we live in.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had never seen it at that point, creating scarcity. But it's more like of a critic way of viewing things. But is it really a sale, or aren't they just, the double price that you're usually paying, and they tell you 50% off, and you're just paying the full price that you would normally pay, but you just think that you're paying half the price,
Well, those are methods. Those are methods of how to do it. But now I'm just talking about the real kind of, because in sales you always have kind of winners in a way, winners of the RFQ. Who won the RFQ at the end? There is one, or actually there might be two. There might be two or three, because some customers prefer to have two or three. Then all of those are winners, but one gets the best piece probably. Yeah, I think it's just like we're probably still immature to figure out how to, as a society, because of the scarcity and other problems that we have to deal like that. Maybe, I don't know. But less and less, I agree with this concept of sales, to be honest, even though I work with that.
Well, in sales, the ultimate goal is profit. Just like in school, what we were talking about, the goal is grades. It's like this number that has been given to something. It contains a supposed value of something, and what it's based on is nothing, really. It's arbitrary, shall we say.
Exactly, yeah.
By other people, by other means and things since it's not based on physical reality or a more relevant source, then that's basically where all the problems in our society come from. It's not based on things that exist, and it's based on the whims of people who have supposed power, whatever, control.
That's true, especially in a corporation like DHL. I work in DHL, so I think it's really like twisted, and like people don't really know, but they just put the numbers there to increase the competition and to make people work more, I guess.
Yeah, it's madness. I mean, we live in an insane world, and it's difficult, but it's also here to operate in if you know that, as opposed to if you think you're sitting there wondering why things are the way they are the whole time, not knowing, and then and then it's like, oh my God, everything's so crazy. But again, it gives you a better way to deal with it. You actually know how it works.
It's quite funny that that RSA Animate, that What Motivates Us by Dan Pink. Daniel Pink has also written a book called the proper name is called To Sell is Human: The Surprising Truth About Moving Others. I've got the book because I'm also in sales and so forth and marketing but reading the book, he's getting at that whenever whatever opinion we say, like if we've got to friends and go to this movie, why I think it's got really good anime, blah blah blah, we're selling. So whatever our human activity is with other humans, take away the profit margin and companies, and just to be human and to give our opinion is to sell our opinion, to sell our ideas, to sell our point of view. We're always, it's a sales. And another thing that I think that sales is great for is if somebody says to you, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, like that's a hard out objection. And if a lot of people get emotional and go, yes I do know what, but in sales you get taught to say thank you for the feedback, apparently you didn't quite understand what I said, may I inquire what that was. By thanking them, most people who give you a bad objection aren't used to being thanked, and then by asking a further question you're opening them up to say, now they've got to disclose what exactly is their meaning, what they didn't understand, or that they think that you don't know what you're talking about, they have to pinpoint it. So a lot of the time you can open up a relationship by using these techniques. But that's outside of the profit motive.
Yeah, indeed. And that there's also like kind of ethical selling as well.
Cool. So
can you elaborate a little bit on ethical selling? Because could you please elaborate a little bit?
I've read a few things here and there about how to basically be a salesperson but still act with ethics towards your customers by being basically very kind of honest, not extremely honest. Of course, you cannot give them all the details, but being quite honest and always thinking what's the best for the customer and how to create synergies to grow together, because at the end you win together. Kind of like making a partnership and collaborating to achieve the best results. And if you're really not good at something, it's best to say it than to have the problems afterwards and to lose the whole relationship with the customer. But yeah, I think that this not necessarily is always possible, especially in big corporations, because you have a lot of other factors.
Yeah,
or like a coach. A coach is an ethical salesperson. Get up in the morning, go for a run, like if the betterment of the customer or the client. If that's ethical, but like if you're selling them Coca-Cola or something like this, I don't think it's ethical because it's not conducive to their well-being.
Yes, correct. And I would not sell that kind of things that I do not believe in. And hopefully, we have the possibility to choose, but not everybody has, I know.
Yeah, really what's in the best interest of the customer is the most information possible about whatever they're trying to decide about or purchase or whatever you want to think of it in terms of. So by what you just said, there is incentive to not give them all the information because of this system that we live in, which is kind of, again, it's a fundamental flaw of how we operate. basically keeping information, keeping resources from people,
Yeah.
all built into this terrible competitive scarcity-based environment.
And the problem is that you don't really speak to the people that know what's going on. Like, for example, in terms of logistics, I don't speak to logistics people. I speak to procurement sometimes, which have like only numbers in head and key performance indicators, and that's it. So you don't really speak to the people that have the problems or issues, and that's the problem, that we always speak. We very often speak to the wrong people that care only about numbers.
Yeah, that's why I love, how he mentioned the zeitgeist movement, which is essentially like, mentioning it's the things that we're into. We're all trying to do the same things here. And yeah, like he recognizes that, like Einstein said, you can't solve a problem using the same level of thinking that created it. So you have to think outside of the system that exists and not keep operating the same fucking way for centuries, expecting eventually it's going to work itself out. It's going to be fine. It's insane.
Yeah, something that I found interesting is when he mentioned the zeitgeist movement, because I don't know. Yeah, I think like I was not expecting that guy to know about the zeitgeist movement, so it was like a shocker. Positive one, of course.
It's growing. It's a huge movement, and people are advocating it, whether or not they're necessarily a part of it or the Venus Project. People are still talking about it, thinking about it. It's out there now, and it's going to keep growing. I think it's going to keep becoming more relevant and necessary. Did anyone else have any more questions, comments on the video or anything?
No, I just wanted to relate something that of what you just said, Michael. Last night, I think Jennifer Hughes, she posted a link from, I think, Forbes magazine or those big companies, and they had an article that it was like people in the future will have no jobs because there will be like so much automation that people will just not have jobs. And so like they're worrying, like that they're really worried about what's gonna happen. And so like I think it's funny because in a way they're advocating what we are, but they just don't see the whole picture. They just see what's gonna happen if people don't have money to pay for anything that they need because they don't have a job. So I just I found it extremely funny that they're actually worried. It's good for our interests, because the faster that happens, the faster we'll move into an RVE. But it's just there's a lot of people that advocate what we say without even knowing it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to happen just because it should. I mean, ideas like this have been around for a while. Like, the guy mentioned that, they get dismissed as utopian or idealistic and all this other shit just because people don't know they're possible. So, how many other these things have been proposed and just been, swept under the rug or poo-pooed by society. But, it's difficult. So that's why, it's essential that we work for it and, do what we can to spread the word, spread the information. But not in a traditional sense, in terms like what we've just discovered, not to hammer it into people's heads, old school style, give them the incentive to want to learn it. It seems to be the better way. But that's a whole other discussion. We've talked about that before. Methods of education, and we've already gone pretty long here. Did anyone else have other things they wanted to discuss?
I think we could discuss this all day.
Yeah, a lot to discuss, but in the end, doing is more powerful, more effective than just talking. Is the old what's the old adage? Those who can't do teach. Teaching is great. Don't get me wrong, but again, I feel
whoever said that was not a teacher.
No, teaching is essential, but if you think about it, again, I would say I want to teach people. I really don't. It's a pain in the ass. I want people to be smarter. I don't want to have to teach them. I want there to be a device that they can just learn things from. So anyway.
I find teaching others to be a very rewarding activity.
Mhm.
Not to sound like I don't want to. I guess if you have the right student, that's what I'm trying to say. But I don't want to sound like an asshole. But you do need to have the minimum requirements of somebody that's willing to learn, that's got the background and whatever. That's what I'm really trying to say with the right student.
Sergio, you sounded like such an asshole there. I don't think you could sound like an asshole if you tried.
Sorry.
See? Anyway, I got to run, guys, but awesome conversation as always. I learned something. I hope other people did too. We'll see you guys again soon.
Okay, see you. It was good talking to you.
Feel free to stay. Keep
And if anybody wants to stay and talk with me and Sergio, we are doing a project. So if anyone is interested, if anybody has any...
I'll stop recording and hold on. Just
Yeah, good.